Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday morning service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lake Norman. All are welcome here, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, economic status, or ability. We are an open faith liberal community, and although we're not dogmatic, we do search for truth, and we are committed to acts of compassion and social justice. My name is Elaine. I've been a member for about 2 years. Today, we have our chalice to light our path to truth. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. Today, our pastor, Pat Jobe, a nonconformist, will be looking at spirituality. And he asked the question, are reason and careful consideration at the heart of the great movements for justice and social action in history? In conjunction with that, I wanted to add a little bit about Charles Wagner, who was a French Reform pastor in the 1800s and 1900s. His philosophy was one of a Christian love without dogma. He espoused a simple life and love of nature. In 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt, impressed by his book, The Simple Life, invited Wagner to speak at the White House. Here's what Pastor Wagner said. The just person is not the product of a day, but of a long, brooding, and painful birth. To become a power for peace, we must first pass through experience, which leads us to see things in their different aspects. It is necessary that we have a wide horizon and breathe various atmospheres. In a word, from crossing one after another paths and points of view, the most diverse, and sometimes the most contradictory, we must acquire the faculty of putting ourselves in the place of others and appreciating them. I will leave you to Pat Jobe, and we'll have a little bit of accompanying music from Mike Alec. See you later.
A favorite nonconformist is the novelist Tom Robbins. He's a native of North Carolina, and he spent most of his childhood amid what he called the peeling wallpaper and the sweaty tobacco smells of Richmond, Virginia. No reading of Tom Robbins can be managed calmly. His electric prose and literary pyrotechnics often cause the reader to stand up and adjust their clothing and rattle the window panes with laughter. He said, using words to describe magic is like using a screwdriver to cut roast beef. It's possible. It's possible. Take just a moment to think about that. Using words to describe magic is like using a screwdriver to cut roast beef. He's not saying it can't be done. He's just saying it's messy and inexact. Spirituality is another one of those words that might strain the effectiveness of using words. What is spirit? We know what school spirit is. It's what makes you holler and scream and whoop and shake pom-poms at sporting events. I used to kid my father that a minister could tell him he was going to heaven and going to spend eternity in bliss, and he would sit and calmly take in that information. But if North Carolina State University scored a touchdown, he would be out of his seat screaming for joy. I used that tease on him a couple of times, and finally he said, they are two entirely different experiences. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Where do we find the energy to dance the victory dance? Where does the spirit come from to march from Selma to Montgomery to insist on voting rights? Where was the spirit that inspired Joan of Arc, Jeanne d'Arc, to liberate Orleans and drive the English out of France? History is full of seminal moments when the established order was thrown into stark relief and change became the order of the day. In fact, it is often change that disorders the day and leaves things upside down, backward, and in a tailspin. Unitarian Universalists are born and bred and inspired and propelled along by a spirit for change. And change is so important to us. A spirit of nonconformity, questioning the value of even sanity itself in an insane world. We may not have coined the phrase, but we have certainly used the phrase, the inmates have taken over the asylum. And we notice when it happens. Just as I'm getting started, let me confess that I cannot answer the question posed by today's message. It's just too damn tough. It's like trying to measure the ocean with a teaspoon. The ocean is too big and the spoon is too small. But I would ask you to think about the questions, to feel deeply the emotions of your own life, and see where the fog has whispered to you, or to see where you have been inspired by that deep, steady place within you. Did you ever follow a hunch? How did you decide the one you married was the one you could go the distance with? Or for those of you who are divorced, those of us who are divorced, when did we finally notice that there were too many cracks in the ice, too many sparks jumping over the hearth, too much danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger? Lots of the seminal moments in our own lives do not happen because of reason and careful consideration. Glennon Doyle was married. She was a Christian with children. She had become something of a superstar writer and conference speaker among Christians when her future wife, Abby Wambach, walked into the room. Doyle did not reasonably and carefully consider that there might be a lesbian lurking in her body. She did not carefully consider the journey into a whole new way of being in the world that would have many Christians turn their backs on her and cost her marriage to her husband of many years. When Abby walked in the room, she simply looked at her and said, "There she is. That's the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with." Though they lived thousands of miles apart and it cost Doyle a great deal, it was a done deal from the moment she saw her. Of course, not all of life is lived that way. So much of what we do and say and think about life and have strong feelings about life are the same things we did yesterday. Most of life, 99% of life, is not unexpected and inspired or a prompt to rush out and throw caution to the wind. But our religion, our approach to all religions, or the lack thereof, is deeply rooted in a willingness to sail against the wind, to swim upstream, to argue with the umpire, and very often march, protest, be arrested, and even die for a better world. When Richard Kiley sought to celebrate our beloved Don Quixote de la Mancha, whose picture hangs on Dick and Linda's wall, he wrote that the knight was willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. I never tire of talking about James Reeb and Viola Liuzzo, the two Unitarian Universalists who gave their lives to march for civil rights from Selma to Montgomery. In 1965, there were two martyrs who were celebrated in the movie Selma. Another Unitarian martyr is Norbert Chopek, the minister who created the Flower Communion, who evangelized for the Czech Unitarian Church and was killed by the SS in a Nazi death camp. But I am not recommending martyrdom to the UUs in Lake Norman. But I do think we can spend a few minutes this morning and maybe a few mornings to come thinking about the spirit that inspires martyrs. What is this willingness to walk into hell for a heavenly cause? Is it a whisper in the wind? See for a moment in your mind's eye a 14-year-old Martin Luther King Jr. Watch him comfort his little sister as the two of them realize they have come on the wrong day to an Atlanta amusement park. She is crying. He is comforting her because they didn't come on Colored People Day. They came on the wrong day. And she is so emotionally decimated by this experience. And her big brother vows right then, right there, that he would work to change the system of segregation in the South. Why? Where did that come from? How many other big brothers had walked away from similar scenes only to say, sis, let it go. Let it go. That's just the way life is down here. What was the difference? Would he have walked that lonesome valley if he had known how it would end? Like Glennon Doyle, like Joan of Arc, like so many nonconformists who have walked away from conventional wisdom, we have to wonder, where did it come from? Did it come from that steady place inside? Or was there a whisper in the wind? And again, I remind you, I don't know the answer. I just think it's important that we consider it to be a mighty fine question. Other inspirations include the Wright Brothers and their sister Catherine, who rarely gets credit for the fact that she kept the family business going while her brothers were inventing the motorized airplane. As we look back across history, airplanes and steamships and telephones and light bulbs look like inevitable results of reasonable and considerate minds. No. Most such pioneers were thought to be insane at the time. Everybody thought they were crazy. Last Sunday, we had an inspiring and wonderful sermon from the Reverend Claudia Jimenez about the inspiring and wonderful Unitarian minister, the Reverend Carolyn Bartlett Crane, a woman who many thought was crazy for wanting a life in ministry. You're a woman. Reverend Jimenez asked us to very pointedly, she asked us, what are we going to do to create justice in the post-COVID world? And I now would simply add to that question, where do we find the spirit to propel us forward? This is a delicate maneuver for us. Sure, we take great solace, encouragement from the fact that we sent those postcards to encourage voting last year. That was important justice work, and we're glad we did it. We're also excited that the dog fence ministry starts back on April 6th, and more details on that will be available in the newsletter. Just in case you're here for the first time, let me say that our dog fence ministry finds dogs chained, approaches their owners in a very kindly and non-judgmentally, offers the family a dog fence as an alternative to chaining the dog. Jim Price tells us that watching the dogs run free within these spacious, well-built fences is quite the thrill. Having witnessed it myself, I agree. I can say a free dog running may be one of the best freedom scenes I've ever witnessed. And yes, our director of spiritual education, Autumn Weathers, has done a beautiful job, a beautiful and creative and amazing job of engaging our young people in doing pet art to raise money for the dog fence ministry. Her daughter Ellery and Natalie's grandson Connor are leading the pack. These gestures may feel small compared to the iceberg of pain we see when we watch the news or read the news. But they feel great when we get to praise a child artist, encourage a voter sitting on the fence, or watch a dog run free. Maybe it's obvious, but I still need to say it. What we are doing matters and works and is effective because we are in it together. Group energy is creating group effectiveness. Yes, we want to do more. Yes, we want to grow and find a physical home. But we miss out if we fail to stop and look around at what is happening right here, right now. Jim Arnold has challenged us to keep a roadside clean. It may feel small, but it is the result of our group energy. Dare we even perhaps call it spiritual energy? Does it come from that deep, steady place within us? Do we hear it in the wind? When my beloved friend Linda Kettner was 6 or 7 years old, she heard about Rosa Parks being arrested in Montgomery. This little girl got on a city bus in Salisbury, North Carolina, and walked to the back where the black people were sitting and sat down among them. The bus driver said, "Little girl, you can't sit back there. That's not for you." She did not budge. And the bus driver put her off the bus, and she had to find a payphone to get a ride home. Where did she find that energy? We know there were probably 1,000 little girls in Salisbury who didn't protest segregation on city buses that day. We know how many people weren't trying to invent motorized flight or steam engines or light bulbs when all those things came from that steady place within, or maybe from something they heard on the wind. You probably know the old joke that if it wasn't for Thomas Edison, we'd all be watching television by candlelight. We walk in the footsteps of people other people thought were crazy. Think about that for a second. We walk in the footsteps of people other people thought were crazy. Sometimes we feel a little crazy ourselves. Again, I'm sorry, I don't really understand how all this works. But those are questions and challenges. Those are questions that challenge us, like that brilliant sermon we heard from Reverend Jimenez last Sunday. What are we going to do? Who is available to help? Can we write a check, make a phone call, send an email, build a fire that might warm the hearts and hands of those who are left out in the cold? Let me challenge you again to look at the websites for A Roof Over, and University Soup Kitchen, University Soup Kitchen. Gail Arnold mentioned Feed North Carolina, which is at 275 South Broad Street in Mooresville. She mentioned that in last week's after-service conversation. I'll ask Regina to place those websites back in the newsletter next week. Also, please hold close Time Out Youth. This group serves adolescents struggling with the big questions of sexual preference and gender identity. These kids really struggle, and Time Out Youth helps them day by day. Suicide rates are high, and depression often leaves these young folks underachieving and set back by their situations. Having dealt with a family touched by teen suicide, I can tell you that it tears at the heart in ways the rest of us don't even want to think about, much less experience. But regardless of what you do, you are here now. You are here now. And it may not feel like a very big deal to you, but it is a very big deal. Very little good has ever come by people acting alone. Even the Lone Ranger has Tonto. Even Superman has Lois Lane. Very few loads get lifted by a single pair of hands. Thank you so much for being here and sharing these few moments. We would be greatly diminished without you. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but please believe me, you matter at a profound and energizing level. In so many ways, you are a source of our spiritual energy. You are a source of spiritual energy for the rest of us. Yes, we need your money, but your presence is of infinite worth. Keep coming back. It works if we work it together.
Greetings, everyone. This is a song of mine called Ours for the Taking. She let her guard down, her good faith was stolen, but you can't stop tomorrow, the river keeps flowing. I held my hand out, the tears started falling. Yesterday's long gone, your destiny's calling. Ooh, the darkest hour, but the night gives away. The sun warms the world, and it burns off the haze. Light to guide you from the dark roads behind. Turn from the past now, there's new hills to climb. Some say the answer must come from within. Some spin the wheel of fate, say it's all sink or swim. But the new day is breaking, the colors awaken. It's ours for the taking, the sun on the road. The night gives away, the sun warms the world, and the clouds roll away. One star to guide you from the long road behind. Turn from the past now, there's new hills to climb. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Pat, for your words. We always enjoy what you have to say. It's always a little different. And I would like to thank Mike for continuing to give us something enjoyable to accompany our sermons. For you who are here today, if you've enjoyed our service, you are welcome back at any time. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see Linda Heidenberg's name and a way to contact her. She can give you a little bit more information about the community, or you can look online at uuflkn.org. That's uuflkn.org. Thank you for coming today, and everybody, go in peace.